This was hands down the most beautiful episode of Vinland Saga, and I don't think that would be up for debate, especially given that we're 47 episodes into this show, and I think for the first time, we've truly seen an element of happiness come from a character like Thorfinn without anything negative about to creep up on him right now. But the thing about this episode is I think it's not only the most beautiful episode of Vinland Saga, but I think probably the most beautiful episode of anime I've seen, because the amount of payoff and satisfaction you can get from a character like Thorfinn, who started the show off with nothing but revenge and murder on his mind for what happened to his father, to then see the absolute downfall of being sold into slavery and then getting that carrot on the stick, your freedom can still happen, to then seeing him truly start to live as a true warrior as Thors wanted him to be, someone who has no enemies and doesn't need a blade to defend himself, to enter the most, I think, anticipated conversation of Vinland Saga period, to have our boy literally say the only reason that this happened to begin with is because no one had a conversation, swords are drawn and you draw yours right back. What would Thorfinn do when that exact same thing happened to him? Well, he would run away. And I think that's what's so brilliant, because the amount of development a character like Thorfinn, who would always draw his blades, to be able to just say, I tried, you aren't listening, I'm going to leave this war-torn country, is absolutely beautiful. Now, full live reaction to this beautiful episode is available on my Patreon if you do want to see my full uncut thoughts, and honestly my heart melts as I'm watching this episode. You can head on over there and consider supporting. Now, when we rewind, when we had Leif basically worried that Thorfinn was just going to run off to his death, the reason he let him go is because he saw a different man than who he saw before, and that is someone who wouldn't fight his way to get there, but rather would come back alive. And I think the idea of when Thorfinn told him that he no longer looked at his people for running away as cowards, but rather he actually respected them. I think that's such a brilliant foreshadowing moment, because really, what can you do to someone who wants to conquer farms for money and resources to continue on his conquest for power, to build what he sees as utopia in this peaceful world? While many will prosper under his rule, also few, maybe thousands, maybe millions will suffer as well. And I love the fact that if you were to explain this to someone who hasn't watched the Vinland Saga, or maybe only saw season 1, they might say that makes no sense, but it makes perfect sense. Canute, the last time he saw Thorfinn, was terrified of losing his life. Of course, he didn't want him dead, he easily could as king, but he said no, and Thorfinn ended up sold off into slavery. But Thorfinn, as seen by the previous episode, held no grudges because at the very least, as a king he had every right to kill him for what he attempted to do, but instead gave him a second chance. The idea that for all of the torment, literally having a severed head whisper in your ear, he is haunted by his sins, and I would say rightfully so, especially given what he did to family, right? But the fact that someone like Canute, he didn't want to talk to Thorfinn because the last time he saw him, this was the most dangerous warrior you would never want to cross paths with. If he thinks that this is his farm, I mean, he already had people try to jump him from the beach, right? Like, he's obviously paranoid. And to have him literally swarm him with all his men, most of those men are saying, bro, please turn away. We actually respect the hell out of you. What is he expecting someone like Thorfinn to do? He's expecting him to attack him. He may be unarmed, but he's not an idiot. He knows someone like Thorfinn unarmed is enough to kill him. So what does he do? He says, I will run. That is the last thing anyone who knew Thorfinn in season 1 would ever expect him to say, because that's not who Thorfinn is. But to see him not try to bluff, not try to get one up, what can you do other than let out a laugh? To imagine not only what Thorfinn's been bottling up for so many years, to have a king that has been so twisted and corrupted and feels like there's only maybe one true friend that he can truly rely on. Rewind a dozen episodes back, he was worried about the food that his sister had sent to him and didn't want to eat or drink anything out of fear of poison, right? To go from having one person he might be able to trust 100% to being able to finally let out a laugh being like, this is the weirdest peace talks I've ever had. Honestly, both of these characters kind of needed that, and I truly wasn't expecting him to turn around. I thought him and Thorfinn would have a good conversation, but things would continue. But instead, to see the fleet just move away, and to see that peaceful moment of him truly feeling like he's happy to wear the crown. I mean, heavy is the head that wears the crown. It's a pretty big sin for many rulers, but to see all those people bow and feel like even if peace can't last forever, even if this way can't last forever, I think the biggest strength someone could have, especially in the era of Vikings, is to be able to tell people who kill for joy and are proud to die on the battlefield that I will gladly turn away and run, and if you make it to my land, I will keep running. People like to harp and like to say, oh, that's not badass enough, but the reason why Vinland Saga's story has elevated once again into a different level of masterpiece is because the show started with a father trying to teach his son that he has no enemies, and we learn that said father is arguably the most powerful warrior that this series will probably ever know. And the idea of going farther and farther away from the starting point of Thors at the beginning of season 1 anyway, to now feel like we're getting closer and closer to who he once was. I think the most challenging thing any character could do in a show like Vinland Saga is to actually say, we will create a world without war and violence. Now, realistically, can you do that? No. Humanity will always breed violence, there will always be battles. However, the strongest character, or the strongest person, let's even take this out of Vinland Saga, the strongest person are the ones who can look at humanity and say, let's try for the better outcome. Even if realistically, history has shown us nothing like that can always last forever. The idea of someone being able to put that much faith not only in themselves but people as a whole, these are the people who inspire change and cause humanity to evolve from where we once were. And even though we always have farther to go, characters like Thorfinn are the reason why that change has any chance of ever happening. And with next episode being titled Home, I mean, we knew we were getting it. I mean, you didn't need to watch the preview to know he would see his mother once again. But wow, I mean, to have characters like Omar just look at Thorfinn being like, I don't want to be like my father. I don't want to be like my brother. I want to be like you. And Thorfinn to be able to look at him saying, man, I'm actually impressed. It took me 15 years to get to where you're at. It's just brilliant to see the amount of payoff and the fact that the most tension we had was the first couple of minutes to then just let out that big laugh and almost sigh of relief. It's absolutely breathtaking. The fact that someone like Snake, someone who ran from everything that he once did and took up a title, was able to tell our boys his true name because how the hell do you not respect that? He was begging his master to bend the knee, and now we have a situation where that king was able to have a conversation with someone like Thorfinn, someone who he knew was one insane warrior, was able to put dialogue first and able to resolve something. I mean, seriously, Vinland Saga is an absolute modern classic, and whether we have to wait 3, 5, I don't care how many years, you know season 3 is going to be a banger as well, and it's not because of crazy fight scenes, it's because of the characterization of a Viking war-torn story. And I mean, if you tell me that you didn't get like just hit right in the feels when Thorfinn gets up and says, come on brother, and Einar says, we got this brother, I mean, you gotta be ice cold, man, because that was like the perfect bow to tie that entire scene together. But this was incredible. This, I mean, I claimed Vinland Saga season 1 as one of my favorite anime when it ended, and season 2 has just made me love this show all the more. It is absolutely breathtaking, and you could have used this as a season finale, but knowing we get the home episode next week to tie it together, yeah, this is another 10 out of 10 season. Thoughts, feelings yourself down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new around here. Of course, ring that bell so you can get notified when I upload more Vinland Saga on the channel. And as I mentioned, full live reaction to this beautiful episode is available on my Patreon if you're interested. And while you're there, you'll also get a video shout out. So today we have Power 9987, Rerun, Pranay Somshwa, Ricardo Pelego, and Beatrice. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.